Hey guys, we're back. Thomas Palaskis here with a very good friend of mine, also a peer, someone I actually look up to very, very much, and a person I've been blessed to be in business with. Today we have Rob Talbot. Rob is just a massive entrepreneur. He runs tons of businesses. He manages the Keller Williams office here in Palmdale. He owns several Keller Williams. He's in more businesses than I know of. He has multiple properties, so I'm just really encouraged by him. I love the way he presents himself. I love his energy. And we're here today to figure out how in the world does he do this. Rob, before we get into all the nitty gritty, what's your favorite sport?
What's my favorite sport?
Yes.
Professional sports to watch is probably, professional sports to watch is basketball. I'm a diehard Lakers fan.
Diehard
Lakers fan. So
Love
basketball is my stuff. My son's my 10-year-old son plays basketball, so I love watching him now.
Nice.
Love the Lakers. My favorite sport, I grew up in martial arts.
Oh, nice.
So I
There
was on a competition team, like a traveling team, like travel ball for baseball or whatever. So my favorite sport growing up was martial arts. And several different styles. To watch though is basketball, and specifically Lakers.
Gotcha, nice. So do you think being involved in sports kind of helped with your competitive spirit?
100%.
Or going after?
100%. That's actually one of the things that I have gotten back into sports recently.
Oh, wow.
Is because I really appreciate the competitive nature. Look, it's just a game, and it is. Right. We play a game, they play a game. I enjoy the process of committing to getting great at something and watching people the things that people like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant have committed, the dedication, the work ethic, the determination. It's a basketball game, and I admire watching great coaches put those pieces together.
Right.
I love that stuff. So in business and life, man, I really appreciate that about sports.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about your past. Let's go back to maybe right after high school. What were you doing right after high school? Did you go to college? Did you get straight into business? Where were you? Where was your life headed?
Right out of high school, I probably took a little less traditional path right out of high school. In fact,
you and me both.
Yeah. So right out of high school, literally a month after I finished high school, I moved to Lake Tahoe, and I lived in Lake Tahoe for about 6 months. I worked at Heavenly, which is a ski resort up there. It's one of the largest ski resorts in the nation. Had some cool, fun experiences, and ended up moving back to the Antelope Valley. So at 18 years old, I was on my own.
Wow.
Kind of couch top it, lived with some friends, lived with some family members for a while. So right after being like what I would call like put into the adult world. I worked just miscellaneous odd jobs. I worked at Heavenly when I came back down here. I got a job working at Walmart for a little while.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, pushing in carts, pulling the carts in 100 at a time.
I was there
before they even had the automated deal. We were pulling them in with ropes. And did that for a little while until I got a job at Ralph's Grocery Company. Worked for Ralph's Grocery Stores in Southern California, in Encino, Santa Clarita. Ripped boxes at night crew, stocked shelves.
I did
a lot of those jobs. So
same here.
I did that till I was about 21 years old. Worked at Ralph's.
When did you realize you were an entrepreneur? Now, not necessarily when did you get into fields of entrepreneurship, but when did you realize you were an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Unlike some, I know exactly when that time was. I read a book a friend of mine turned me on to, and it was a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh, nice.
Read that book. And I say read as in like I read a few chapters and thumbed through a few others and looked at worksheets and played the game with him. And I ended up going to a seminar, and it was a real estate investment seminar, and it was one of these weekend-long seminars where you get the first day for free, and the second day you have to pay to go to.
Got it.
After reading this book. And I had what some people call an aha moment or whatever that significant emotional experience was, and I was 21 years old. And I enjoyed.
So this was right after Ralph's?
No, this was still while I was at Ralph's.
During at Ralph's.
Still while I was at Ralph's, yeah. And I was talking with these guys, and they were like 40 years old, and they were flipping houses and running businesses. And I remember thinking to myself, these guys aren't any smarter than I am. And it wasn't like in a boastful way. It was just in a way of like, wait a minute, if these guys can figure it out, if these guys can create millions of dollars, if they can create wealth for themselves, and now these guys have even turned that into where they're teaching and speaking at seminars, I can do this. And so I had that moment of you know what, I don't want to work a job for the rest of my life where I'm bound by you know, a union or certain.
Yep.
So I thought I'd be an entrepreneur, and I actually ended up going and working as a bartender, server after that, so that I could start becoming an entrepreneur.
Gotcha.
And having a more flexible schedule.
So what was a defining moment in your life that impacted you so much, that encouraged you to change the way you think, and not only change the way that you think, but caused you to take action?
If you're asking me what was the most significant time, I can remember some of those, and then maybe one of those transformative times, like which one came first?
Right, you can tell us.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
love it.
So one of the first ones, you know, because I've had several of those, each maybe setback or even accomplishment.
Right.
They were around a time where I probably learned something.
Right.
And that's how I was able to get to the next level. And so one early on in my life was just at a time where I was telling you, you know, being on my own and working simple jobs, not making a lot of money. Remember very early on just not having any money.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, like no money.
Yeah.
You know, I can think of times where, you know, not eating all day, not because I didn't have time or this or that, or I didn't go to the store, but literally I'm 18 years old, 19 years old, I'm living on my own, and there's nothing to eat in the fridge. And every penny I had was going to just like sustaining lifestyle, like an apartment.
And you probably didn't have someone that was going to take care of you. You were on your own, doing it your way.
Well, there's plenty of people out there that love me and all that, but I was on my own.
You weren't going to
I wasn't asking for help.
Exactly.
And I didn't have any family living in the Antelope Valley, which is where I was living. They all, you know, moved out of the area.
Gotcha.
So there was a time that I can remember, and it was during Thanksgiving time, and I was working at the grocery store. And during Thanksgiving at the time, they used to have these promotions where if you spent like $200 or $100, you'd get a free turkey. Well, what would happen is these women or these customers would come in frequent enough that they would spend multiple trips to the supermarket during this trip, but they already had their turkey. They didn't need their free turkey, even though they were coming back for another $100 worth of groceries.
Nice.
And I remember a friend of mine was buying groceries for the third time that week, and she's like, oh, I hate to have this turkey go to waste.
Right.
You know, because she wanted to take the free turkey, but she didn't need a free turkey.
Right.
And it was one of the ladies that worked at the store. So I approached her. And it anchored with me because I approached her and I was like, hey, would you mind like still getting the free turkey and giving it to me? Because like I'll eat that turkey for like 4 days.
Love this.
You know? And so I did that. And she's like, absolutely, no problem. You want me to get two? Like, and so she got us one. And my cousin was living with me at the time that at that particular time wasn't working. We were the same age. And him and I ate that. We cooked this turkey at our house. No dressing, no anything else. We just baked this turkey. And my cousin and I ate that turkey for, I kid you not, what felt like a week.
Nice.
And I tell that story often because I remember that was a day where I said, you know what, I'm done with this. Like I'm grateful.
Right.
And it just impacted me that in order to just have food, to do that stuff, I'm having to ask this lady for her free turkey.
Right.
And so that was one of those first moments where I decided, you know, being broke was a choice.
Right.
You know, I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad. You know, this is all kind of around that time.
Gotcha.
And just creating for this first time in my life awareness around the fact that I can literally choose. It's not just circumstances falling on me like good luck. Right. It was a choice.
It was a choice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I made a choice then that stayed with me. It didn't happen right away, but I made a choice that I was going to live a bigger life. I was going to live a life that was at least admirable to myself.
Right.
You know, I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that some of the things I do aren't motivated by what you think or what other people in my life think. I'm completely motivated by that. However, that was like that first time I said, I'm going to be proud of what it is that I'm doing for a living. I'm going to be proud of the life I live. I want to, you know, drive a car, live in a place, or eat the food that I get to choose to do. It took many years for me to figure out how to do that.
There,
and actually
exactly.
But that was a choice where it's
that
like,
was
I know
that's where your thoughts changed.
Yeah.
I could see that.
This isn't what I want. Like, this isn't going to happen
Begging
anymore.
for turkey.
Yeah, no,
free turkey.
I'm over it.
Eating it dry.
And being pumped.
Yeah, yes, I got turkey.
That was the significant moment. It was like being excited, like, oh, it's turkey. No dressing, no stuffing, no gravy. Like, ah. Oh.
Well, hey, you can appreciate the small things.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, where did you go? When did you start investing, or like, what was one of the first investments you made? It doesn't have to be a big investment. What would you say after that turkey that guided you further into this, and then starting to invest?
So investments. My first investments were, you know, you and I actually met a long time ago,
right.
and we both had a hobby around cars.
Right.
And I had a friend of mine that was he had an auto shop, performance shop, and I used to work for free. Mm-hmm. So I'd work with him just to learn.
Right.
I enjoyed it. It was my hobby. That gave me the ability to kind of know what I was doing. And so my first like real business of investing was at about 22 years old, I had my first daughter, and it was a surprise.
Oh, okay.
You know,
gotcha.
So I needed extra money, and at the time I'm serving and bartending and
wow.
you know, making a living. We had a home that we were renting, but
wow.
we weren't necessarily, you know, thriving by
right.
any means. And so I started buying like cars that have broken transmissions. I started buying little
yes.
Honda Civics
right.
that I
nice.
felt like I could maybe fix what was
right.
wrong with them, make a couple bucks. And although it wasn't, you know, it wasn't getting rich by any means, but
right.
it did allow me for the first time to have like a savings account
right.
and to be
nice.
ahead.
Nice.
And I kid you not, like true story, I remember during this time I was convinced that, you know, we got to know the people at the bank. We're going in there all the time. We got a little baby, and I remember the first time that I had $3,000 in my mm-hmm. checking account. Like that was a big deal to me,
right?
Like, because $3,000 was an excess to me,
right?
And so I was convinced that, you know, the girl that we always talked to at the bank was like paying attention. Like that was enough money that she was like, good for you.
Right,
know?
right.
I had that in my head because I was so proud of myself.
Right,
like $3,000. Like
right.
look at me, I can pay all my bills
right.
and have
money left
something
over.
left
yeah.
over.
Exactly.
And that came from, you know, what was the first kind of entrepreneurial effort, which was buying cars and selling cars, fixing them to
right.
make some profit.
Right.
It also
so you leverage your knowledge
yeah.
and your skill to fix these cars, and a little bit of your money, and you flip it and turn it into more.
And some influence. I had some good connections in that community.
Uh-huh.
Other people that were into cars, mm-hmm. other kids that didn't know how to fix these things. So it gave kind of a word of mouth that, you know, that if you wanted some of this work done, or if you wanted to buy one of these cars, I could get you a deal. And what I would do is, if you came to me and said, hey, I've got $2,500, I'm looking for a little Honda Civic, I go, great. What year do you want? What do you want it to look like? I would go find one that I could get, and if I could get it for like $1,200 or $1,500, I'd go buy it and then sell it to you. Right. So word of mouth was already helping me back then.
Love it. Okay. So then, what was one of your first actual real estate investments?